you're well and having the most incredible day. As always, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you my top 22 books of 2022. Now originally I was going to do like a yearly roundup and just quickly go through each book I read, but I didn't even want to edit that video. I filmed the whole thing and it just seemed chaotic and it had no structure. It was boring. I filmed it, and when I filmed it I was just like, no, this isn't happening. So instead I thought I would pick my top 22 books of 2022. I'll give you a brief summary because otherwise this video is going to be so long. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy, and I would also love to know your favourite books of 2022. It's very hard to say. Your favourite books of 2022 in the comments below, so let me know. Anyway, right, let's dive in. I hope you enjoy. So this is going to be in no particular order. I have somewhat categorised these books into 3 sections. However, I do have 2 books which don't really fit any of those, so I'm going to start with those books. The first one is A Court of Thorns and Roses, which was a 5-star read for me. This one is about Feyre, who kills a fairy, and essentially she gets taken into the fairy world and is basically told to live there forever, and she starts to have feelings for one of the fairies there, and I'm not going to go into detail because it is very confusing. I'm not going to lie, I read this by listening to an audiobook and I wouldn't recommend it personally. For me, it didn't work out. It took me, I think, 10 days to read like a 400-page book, which is just insane. So I think that kind of messed it up for me, but I still really love the story and I can't wait to continue. So that is the first book. The next book, which doesn't really have a category in my opinion, is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because I don't really think this is a romance. It's more of a, I don't really know how to describe it. Essentially what this is about Evelyn Hugo, would you believe, and her 7 husbands. And essentially Evelyn is a really famous actress, and she has an interview where she wants somebody to write her biography and go through all the details of her life, and she's never told anybody all these facts, and you go through kind of all the centuries of her life, and you find out why she married these people, what happened to them, and it's a really good book. I highly recommend it. The only thing I didn't like is that the font is very small, so it became very hard to read, but it was a really, really good book. So that is another 5-star read. I think most of these, if not all of them, are 5-star reads, but if you want to double check those, check my Goodreads. It's just my name. I always add you guys back, so if you ever want to follow me on there, please do. But anyway, moving on. Next up, I'm going to dive into the kind of YA romance kind of vibe, and I could be wrong again with what I've put these under, so don't come for me, but do let me know down below. But I've kind of put these into piles of murder mystery / thrillery books, quite spicy romance, and then a little bit more tame romance. So this is the more tame romance pile. So the first one we have is Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is my favourite book by Emily Henry. The Book Lovers one, again, really, really good, and I didn't like People We Meet on Vacation. Is that what it's called? Or You and Me on Vacation? Whatever it's called. I didn't really like that one so much, but Beach Read is really, really good. This one is about January, which again, I love that name. Beautiful. January and Gus, and essentially they are, is it forced proximity when they have to like live next to each other? But it's a beautiful book. 5 stars. That was that one. Again, I'm trying not to go into too much detail because I don't want this video to be 8 hours long, so a brief rundown of them all. We then have The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. I read this one in October and I really, really enjoyed it. This one is about witches and it has a little bit of that kind of magic vibe, but I wouldn't necessarily call it like a heavy fantasy book because it's not. It is more focused on the romance of the witches in this book, if that makes sense. A really, really great read though. I love that one. Then we have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This book is mammoth. Like, this book is, well, actually, is it? Because it's only like 400 pages long, but it just feels massive. I don't know why. Like, it just, anyway, really good book, really great story. This one is about Piper and, is it Brendan? And Piper's really, really rich, and then she basically gets sent to a seaside town where she meets Brendan. She sort of learns to work for herself and that kind of thing. Really lovely story. There is a second one. I have not read it yet, but I do have it, so I'm excited to read the second one to that one. Then we have The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This book was really good. I love Christina Lauren's writing. I think they write books incredibly well, and this one was basically about a girl called Olive and a boy called, what is your name? Ethan. And I think, if I remember correctly, Olive and Ethan's sister and brother get married, but they can't go on their honeymoon, so they go instead, and it's kind of how they start to find attraction. So really great story though. I really love that one. We then have another Christina Lauren book, which is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, and this book was a really easy read. I picked this up because I loved the front cover, I'm not gonna lie, like it was really, really pretty. It's a shame it doesn't kind of go around to the spine though, but this was a really, really nice book. I loved it. Essentially this is basically a like friends to more than friends kind of vibe, and it's just a really, really nice read, so I loved that one. Then I have 3 books by Colleen Hoover. The first one is November 9, which I absolutely loved. I really, really enjoyed this book. This is essentially about a girl and a guy, and they kind of meet on one November 9, and then every year from then on the same day they meet up, and it's kind of about their story and how they may have known each other in the past and that kind of thing, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. But this was a really good book. Again, another 5-star read. I loved that one. Another Colleen Hoover book is Confess. This one I think is so underrated. I absolutely love this book so much. It's such a lovely story. You've got Auburn and you've got Owen, and it's just a really great story. The plot twists in this are just so good, and again, it was amazing. I loved it. And another Colleen Hoover book which I read last year and loved was Hopeless. Now this is kind of for the whole series. Like the whole series of this book was just so good, and if you've read this book and you didn't think to continue on with the series, please do. The way it ties up at the end is just perfection, and I think that's why I loved it so much, was because I just loved it. Was just beautiful. If you want a good series to read, there's 2 novellas, 3 books. One of the books is really small, but it's beautiful. A beautiful story. It's about Sky and Dean, and there's just so much to this story, so many levels that I absolutely loved, so I highly recommend that one. So now moving on to the slightly more spicier books, we have Dom and Becca by Willow Winters. Now I'm only holding this one up as an example, but all of Willow Winters' books are so good. They're so easy to read, like they're literally just over 200 pages long, so they're really not long at all. This one is a mafia romance. There's 5 in this kind of series which I read and I absolutely loved, and I am really wanted to pick up all the rest of her books, but they are about £10 each and there is about 50 of them, so I am slowly adding them to my collection. But really, really great stories. If you like a bit of spice and things like that, they are just incredible. Then we have The Roommate by Rosie Dannon. I absolutely love this book. I thought it was so good. It's basically about a girl who moves in with a porn star, and she doesn't really realise he's a porn star at first, and she's very vanilla, if you know what I mean. It's just a really great story. The other book by Rosie Dannon, The Intimacy Experiment, I did not like whatsoever. I thought it was absolutely just so boring, but this book was incredible, so I would recommend it if you want a nice, like, spicy good book. It's just really good. We then have The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I am still waiting to read the second one. I'm currently into a different kind of genre at the moment, so I will go back to this because I absolutely love this. This is like Spice meets Disneyland meets like, oh, it's just so good. It's about Rowan and Zara, and it's incredible. So I really recommend it. I absolutely love that book. We then have the Twisted series by Anna Huang, which I have actually finished now, but I didn't read Twisted Lies until January, so I'm not including it in this video. But you have Twisted Love, which is Ava and Alex, Twisted Games, which is Bridget and Reese, and then you have Twisted Hate, which is Josh and Jules. Now, Twisted Lies I think was my favourite. It was so good, but Twisted Hate is my favourite out of these 3. I'm obsessed with these. This one is Brother's Best Friend, this one is Bodyguard and Princess, and this one is Enemies to Lovers. So really, really good books if you want like a spicy, like, it's just amazing, and they're all intertwined, so you kind of get to know all the characters throughout, and it's just amazing. And the ending of Twisted Lies was perfection, so love all 3 of those. And lastly, we're moving on to like murder mystery, thriller, that kind of vibe. So I'm gonna start off with a Colleen Hoover book, which is Verity. Now, I'm not sure whether it belongs in this category, but I put it in here anyway, and this is a really great book. This is probably my favourite Colleen Hoover book of all time. I actually have got the limited edition hardback. I got it for Christmas, so I'm just obsessed with it. But this is basically about a girl who's an author. She's a very small author, and she gets asked to essentially finish another author's work because she's in like a coma situation. But honestly, this book had me like gasping. It was so good. The amount of twists and turns in it was insane, and I just could not put this book down. Colleen Hoover books are very easy to read, and looking at it now I'm thinking, how was this story only like 315 pages, because so much happened in this book. So I really recommend it. I absolutely loved it. We then have One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. You guys know how much I love this book. I absolutely love it. The series on Netflix is insane as well. It's such a good program. If you haven't watched it, give it a go. But I recommend reading the book first because the book is just insane. I got mine all from, I think, W.H. Smith's and The Works, and they come with this really nice like coloured edges. They're all different, but this is just my favourite, and it was so good. Essentially it's about 5 students who go to detention and one of them doesn't make it out alive, and it's kind of how, like, what happened and that kind of thing. It gives me like Pretty Little Liars vibes. If you've seen it, you'll know what I mean, but it's so good. Next we have 2 books by one of my favourite authors, Holly Jackson. We have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and we have A Good Girl, Bad Blood. These books are so good. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is my favourite of the 2. I'm still yet to read the 3rd one, but it's so big it kind of scares me, but I do need to read it. But yeah, I did really like both of these. This one, it was just a bit more shocking and gripping because this one kind of, you start to understand the vibe, but it still was unexpected, if that makes sense. I absolutely loved both of these, and I'm not going to give too much away, but essentially you're kind of reading from Pip's perspective. That's hard to say, and it is in 3rd person, which I don't particularly love, but it's just insane. And it's about Pip, who is just a normal girl, but she actually starts to solve things. I'm not going to give it away, but insane books. If you've not read them, please do. So good. 1,000,000 out of 10. And lastly is an author who actually writes books that are so plot twisty and insane that I am so just in love with them, and she is releasing a new book this year and I'm so excited to buy it because it's going to be incredible. But that is Cynthia Murphy, and she has released Win, Lose, Kill, Die and Last One to Die, which are both so good. Win, Lose, Kill, Die is probably the most gripping, shocking book I've ever read in my life. Like, the ending of this book, the plot twist, I still can't believe it to this day. Like, I could not believe I did not see it coming, and it really annoys me that I just like completely just didn't even consider that being an option. Last One to Die again is really, really good. This one is a little bit more paranormal, I guess, than this one. This one's like real-time vibes, but this one has definitely got that paranormal kind of vibe to it. Both insane, both 5-star reads, but Win, Lose, Kill, Die, I think it could have been my favourite book of the year, to be honest, because it's just so, the ending, I just did not see it coming, and even now it shocks me, but both incredible. So those are my top 22 books of 2022. I really hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I would love to know down below what books did you enjoy this year, because I feel like I need some more to put on my TBR, and I say this year, I mean last year. What books did you read? Let me know. But yeah, that is everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.